let's talk about the rollovers now. So when I show you that example, takes me all the way back here, of course. Remember what image rollovers are. It's just instructions to the browser that when the page loads, this image that you're currently seeing, these images you currently see, will load. They're the normal or original images. But when you hover over them, that's the rollover part, then it's not magically changing. It's just showing a different image. And what you do is you have the browser tell the computer to preload all of the images so that when you roll over it, it instantly shows you the second image. And so if I go back to Photoshop, you'll see that's really what's going on here. Now again, the type of rollovers I did, I don't want you to copy me. It's just a technique. I'd like to figure out, if you do your rollovers, how you would like to do them. But what I did is I had the regular view. So this is when I hover. It shows the letter in its normal full opacity. But the version you see before, in other words, what will be the normal or original image, is grayed back. And all I did to make that happen was just change the opacity to 30%, and I have a black layer at the bottom. So if you're wondering how I did that, that's all it is. It's nothing magical. So I have one image that's opaque. I save for web that image, and then my rollover images, I just turn those on and then save that for web. So if you decide to do rollovers, and we're going to do it in the demo, then you're going to need to create more images than if you aren't doing rollovers. Okay, so I'll come back to that. But I did it all in one file, and chances are you can do it all in one file too. Now, when I go to save this for web, and I'm going to use keystrokes for save for web here, I'm going to do two versions of this. So one will be at 500 by 400, and that's going to be the big image that will go on the page that I linked to. And then the other one is going to have a longest dimension of 200 pixels. And so I'm just going to change that to 200, and the other one will stay in proportion. So again, don't do two sets of art, do one set of art, and just export your second save for web at a smaller size here. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to cancel all this, get out of here, because I actually gave you all the files we're going to need. So let me clean up here a little bit. I will keep that handy. So back to my site folder. Where are you? Here you are, site folder. And so here is the in class. Here is week 5. And so you'll see these are the images we're going to use today. So that is the large image, which has been saved at 500 pixels. And then this is the A normal, so in other words, the dim one, the one that loads when the page loads. And this is the rollover image. And so both of those have a long dimension of 200. And you'll notice the other dimension is 160. We'll need to know that in a minute. So those are there for all the different, well, actually, I only did, what, 1, 2, 3 letters is all I did. And then over here, we have an HTML page, which we'll open up in Dreamweaver in a minute. And the other pages, you're going to have to build yourself. But I've started you off on the primary assignment page. And so that's what we got. Let's go ahead and go to Dreamweaver, which is right here. And let me put you guys up top. Beautiful. Just like to be able to see the clock so I know if I'm in danger of keeping you too long. And then right now I am actually in my Comm 380 site right now. So you're seeing the naked underbelly of our actual class website. I'm going to now change to my Comm 380 class Monday. And yours actually shouldn't have changed. You know, I have multiple things, so I change it all the time. But yours should stick. You should still be here. And what you want to do is make sure that in your site folder you are indeed still seeing your site files. If anyone is not and you need help getting that set up again, let me know. But hopefully that's what you're seeing right now, and that's always the first thing you should check when you come into Dreamweaver. So here's your home page, your index page. what we're going to do is go right into the in-class folder, to the week 5 folder, and then I'm going to double-click to open up week 5 HTML. And I am in live view, so let me get out of live view and change to design view. And you should be in design view as well. And you can tell if you are because you're going to be able to see all of these boxes. And that's why we're in design view, so you can see the boxes. Now let me walk you through what's happening here. So I'll walk through the HTML first. So you'll see here we are in the body, right here. And as I mentioned earlier, there is another big box inside of the body, which I have named wrapper. It has an ID of wrapper. So if you remember, that's a selector, and the name of the selector is wrapper. And up in the CSS, you'll see that this is going to be preceded by a hashtag. But down here in the HTML, it is an attribute, so it just says ID equals, in quotes, the name of the ID, which in this case is wrapper. One semester, it's been a couple, 3 years ago now, I had a student who was going to a Chance the Rapper concert, and so we spent the rest of the semester naming the rapper Chance, which I still love that. And so inside of the wrapper, which is one big box, are 9 smaller boxes that are each going to hold a letter. And you'll notice that each of these are divs with a class of letter. So remember the difference between a div and a class. An ID you can apply one time, and a class you can apply as many times as you want. And so that's why this is an ID, because I only need one wrapper box. But these are classes because I need a bunch of those. And so each box is going to all have the same rule. So I write the rule once, and I can apply it as many times as I want, which I do just by adding an attribute. Then I do have a 10th box down here called backlink, which is an ID because I only needed one of those. And this is where the link that is going to go back to your home page is going to be. Okay, so I've built all this for you. You'll start building your own pages soon enough. In fact, we'll build simple pages today. But then at the top, I want to show you the CSS rules that are making this look like it looks. So this is a little more code than we dealt with last week. But you'll notice up at the top, here is my tag selector for the body. And so that is just specifying the margin is 0 and the padding is 0. Remember last week when I showed you that the browser was automatically adding 10 pixels on all 4 sides of margin? Well, that's why I did this. This is called resetting. So it's resetting it and making it 0. So if I want to add those things back later, I can. But right now I'm telling the browser to keep its nose out of my margin and padding for the body. Okay, here's a wrapper. So this is an ID selector. And so in the CSS, that is indicated with a hashtag and then the name of the ID here. And so very simple stuff. It's specifying that the width of this box is 690 pixels. So if I go down here, I'm just going to click in the wrapper. And that very nicely shows you a graphic of what box is selected. And you will see that that has a width of 690, and it has no height applied, just a width. The height is being determined by the contents, and it just expands to have more contents.
Ron, I have a question real fast.
Yeah.
How do I get it to where I'm seeing the little box like on the right side?
The box?
Your little setup on the right side of the screen, I don't have that. I only have the left side.
Where it says files and insert and CSS?
I think what she wants to see is a split view.
Oh, are you talking about that? Where
yeah.
You have your code on the left and the view on the right? Or are you talking about the files?
Split view?
Split view, yeah. So at the top, you'll see code, split, and design. And you want to click on split.
Yeah, I'm on split right now, but I'm not seeing the little cutouts kind of thing like you have.
Oh, so you're not seeing the boxes?
No.
Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to change to design view.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Then the boxes will show up.
Okay, awesome. Thank
All
you.
right. Welcome. Mystery solved.
Just a little, I don't understand on my right side why it's so zoomed in to the boxes. If that makes sense.
Are
I
you
don't
on
know
a
how to make.
small laptop?
That's a good question. I determined small. I mean, I feel like it's a pretty good size laptop.
Okay. Well, often with a laptop, I mean, you can click on the design view side, and you can go Command minus and Command plus to change the size. But often the problem is just that if you're on a laptop, and I think I mentioned this, it's just challenging on a laptop because you're not going to be able to see that much in the windows because they're small. So that's most likely your problem, Kelly. So you can try reducing your view just by clicking on that and going Command or Control minus to reduce the view down of that. And then you can see it, but then it sometimes previews weird. So just know that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So anyway, at any
Thank
time
you.
you need to, you can just preview in the browser to see how your page is really looking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. That's just the nature of the game. So what is causing this to be pushed down and then centered is the margin. So you'll see here is the margin. Now, there are different ways of specifying margin. So when we did margin last week, we had margin top, 200 pixels, margin left, 0, margin right, 0, margin bottom, 0. It was actually 4 rules. And this is called shorthand. We will not talk about that in great detail today, but just know that this shorthand allows you to specify the margin on all 4 sides in just a single rule. And so when you see something like this, so there's 100 pixels, auto, 0, and auto. So the 100 pixels is the top. So anytime you see this shorthand, the first number is always going to be the top number, and then it will go clockwise around the dial. Okay? And so top, and then right, and then bottom, and then left. And so 100 pixels on the top, 0 pixels on the bottom, and then left and right are auto. And so don't worry, I'll keep repeating this a lot. But what that means is that will allow your box to stay centered in the browser window. So you'll notice when I resized, you see how that's staying centered? That's what the auto does. And so you're telling the browser to automatically keep the space on the left and the right the same. Okay? So you only want to do that on the left and the right margins, but that's how you can center something. So we'll be doing that a lot, but that's just how it's done. The code for the letter class, and so classes up in the CSS are defined with a dot or a period. And so dot letter is a class, meaning I can apply it many times. And you'll see what I've done is I've established the width and the height of each of these boxes to be 200 pixels. I have a margin, and when you only say margin and give one number, that means the margin all the way around is 15 pixels. And so 15 on the top, right, bottom, and left. And then there is, well, I'm in the wrong place, and then there is something called a float left. Now, we won't dwell on this today, but divs, do you remember what kind of an element a div is? Is it inline or block? Anyone? Anyone? It's block level. And so what does a block level need to do? It needs to take the whole width of the browser, of its parent container. And so since these are block level elements, why are these boxes next to each other? It should be one box here, one box here, one box here, until you have 9 rows, right? Well, the reason they're not doing that is I've applied something called a float, which means that it will allow a block level element to go up next to the element above it. And so all of these have a float left, so it just means go up and to the left as far as you can until you run out of space. And so that's why the second row occurs, is because I don't have room on this top row for another box, so it stays on the left, and they just continue through that way. So we'll deal with floats a lot. Just understand the general concept for now. Paragraph. And so this is a tag selector. And so you'll notice there's no hashtag, no dot. It's just the letter, or if it were the body, just the letter or the word itself, just by itself. So you are specifying, go find an element that is a P element. And so this is basically stripping out the margin, because I don't want any extra space on the margin of the P paragraph element. This is specifying the font family, Gotham, Helvetica Neue, and Helvetica, etc. And then the font size is again being specified at 14 pixels. So those are all being applied already. And then these are my link rules, which I established in the page properties area. And I've established the different colors for the link, visited, and active, and then a different color for the hover. So you'll see that in action once we have applied a link. And so that's it. Those are all the rules that are currently defining all the boxes and text over here. And then here is the structure that is being defined by the HTML, and its only content that is being held right now is the text link to home page. And so HTML is doing its job, CSS is doing its job too. So they work together, they're equally dependent on each other. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is get some stuff in here. And so initially, we're just going to put in a single image on this page. And so this first image inside this box is going to be the letter A. And it's going to be the small letter A, right? So the big letter A is what we'll show later that we'll connect to. So I'm going to go down to this first box here. And what is it I need to make so that I know I'm putting my image in the right place? Okay, you asked for it. In question form, the character or the cursor goes into this place in the code to guarantee the image.
What is robot butt?
What is the robot butt? That is correct. That's 200. I'm not going to tell you 200 what. But yes. Congratulations. You've earned the honorary and symbolic Robot Butt Award. Okay, that's enough of that nonsense. So there is the robot butt. We got the angled cheeks and the crack. And so I am now going to insert the picture into there. And so what I need to do is on the right-hand side, go to the Insert window, choose Image, and then I am going to navigate to the appropriate folder. You know what that is. And what I want to do is, since I'm not doing a rollover for this first one, I don't want to insert the normal image because that's a little dull. I'm going to insert the over image. Click Open, and voila. I now have an image in my box. So again, Dreamweaver wrote all this groovy-ass code for me. It's given me an image element. It's defined the source and given me a file path automatically. How groovy is that? It's even set the width and the height attributes for me. As a reminder, soon enough, a yellow number will show up over here in Dreamweaver. That's because I haven't put anything into the alt tag. So remember, the alt tag is the copy that the computer can read to sight disabled people. So just don't be freaked when you get a yellow number. It's okay if it's talking about your alt tag. So there is an elephant in the room here, though.
Are we for the images that we are inserting are the ones that we kind of alter ourselves, right?
Ultimately, yes. For right, if you're following along now, just use my images, but you will take mine out and put yours in when you have them done.
Okay.
Okay, makes sense? So the elephant in the room, if you haven't noticed, is that these boxes are the wrong size for my image. My images aren't square. They're actually, if you remember, 200 by 160, and my boxes here are 200 by 200. So what do you think I need to do to make all my boxes be the right size? Hint, I only have to change one thing, and it will change all of them.
Change the wrapper or put a size in the wrapper?
Not the wrapper, nope, but you're on the right track. It's inside of the wrapper. Anyone? Look, I'm starting to move my cursor in the direction of the right answer.
Letter?
Oh,
You put a
hello.
letter.
Well done. Yes. So right now the height for those boxes are all defined as 200 high, and they aren't. The picture isn't 200 high. So if all I do is change that to 160 and click over here, guess what? Every single box changes because that rule, that class, applies to every single one of those boxes. And so that's the part of the magic of CSS right there. I change it one place and it changes it in every place it's been indicated. So that's really cool. And so inserting the other images, if they were just all regular images, that's all you really have to do if you want. However, I'm going to do a little bit more than that. I'm going to get the rollovers in. But before I do that, I want to remind you how to change certain things. And one of those things is going to be the background color. And so I'm going to click on the design view side. And then down in the properties window, you want to find the page properties button. And go ahead and click on that. And you remember this from last week. And the background color here is, I'm going to make it be, black. And so it's already there for that. I just hit the Enter key, and then I click Apply, and my background is now black. Nice. And is that all I need to change now? Yep, I've already set up my links in here. You'll see my links are going to be gray, and when I hover, they'll turn orange. And that's also where I set up the underline style I wanted to use. I'm going to go ahead and change my text color for now, just to white. I really don't have any text, because that will ultimately become a link. But this way I can see the text that is there for now.
Ron?
Yeah.
Is there a way to bring up page properties if it's not on the bottom anymore?
You may have the problem we discovered last week. I forget if it was this class or the Thursday class. I think it was actually Kelly. She had her properties window, through no doing of her own, minimized. And so in your properties window in the lower right corner is a little arrow. And chances are, if that arrow is pointing down, that means that the bottom part of the box has been hidden. So if you click on that little tiny arrow, it will show you the bottom. And then what's important is you need to make sure that you're in design view and that you're clicked on the design side of the split. And then the page properties should show up.
Okay, because I still can't find on mine.
Okay, so are you on the design view side, and nothing can be marked? Like your picture can't be marked, the box can't be marked. So you just want to kind of click maybe on the bottom away from everything.
Okay.
And then hopefully it will show up then.
It's not showing up. I think I moved it so I can work. I don't know where I moved it to though.
Did you lose your whole properties window?
I might have. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, properties window is under the window menu. So you can go find it right there.
Oh, okay.
All right. So here we go. And so let me show you how to do a rollover. You will be shocked at the simplicity of this. But I want you to pay attention to how simple your code is right now. Nice and clean and simple and easy. May not seem that way, but trust me, it is. When we create a rollover using Dreamweaver, Dreamweaver is actually going to write JavaScript. These are called behaviors, which really just means it's writing JavaScript for you. You insert it very similarly to how you insert an image. You do indeed make the robot butt, which I'm going to do on that second box. And then I'm going to go to the Insert menu. And this time, instead of choosing Image, I'm going to choose Rollover Image. So I don't know if you saw where my cursor went, but I went all the way down into the media area of the Insert window. So if you're on a smaller screen, you're going to have to scroll down until you find Rollover Image, which when you see HTML5 video, that's the section you want to be in. And then I'm going to click on Rollover Image, and it brings up this window, which is really pretty simple. Now, very important, you need to make a unique image name for each of these because Dreamweaver actually injects these into the JavaScript it's going to write, and it must be unique. It can't be the name of anything else on your page, and it can't be the name of any other rollover image. So I'm going to simply call this rollover 2. And suffice that for now. It probably would be more descriptive if you put the name of the letter in there, but I don't remember what the next letter is, so I'm winging it. Then there's a field right underneath that called Original Image. So that is the image that will load when the page loads. And so to determine that, all you do is click on the Browse button, and I'm going to navigate to the D normal, okay? And click Open. And then the rollover image. That is the image that will load on when you hover on it. And so I'm going to browse to that, and this one is going to be, I'm going to select D over. So be very careful not to choose any of the large letters because they'll be ginormous. They're meant for the other page. So just the D normal or D over are what you're going to need. Underneath that, you don't really need to worry about anything, but do confirm that preload rollover image is checked, which it should be by default. And what that means is it will load all the images when the page loads so that when you roll over it, it will immediately show the other image. Won't have to wait to load it. And so I'm going to click OK. And you're going to see nothing changes. It will not work here in Design View. And actually, last semester, it didn't even work in Live View. Let's see if they fixed that bug. Nope, still doesn't work in Live View. What? Adobe, they're losing a grip here. And so in order to view this, we need to save our file. Very important. And then we want to preview in a browser. So if you remember how to do that, you go to the File menu at the top, and you pull down to Real-Time Preview. And let's see if it works for me this week. I'm going to go to Firefox. And it did. It didn't give me the error message. But remember, if you do get an error message, all you need to do is come back to the desktop, navigate to the file that you want to preview, and just double-click on it, and it will open up in the browser. Okay? So that's a Dreamweaver problem. It's nothing you're doing wrong. And then when I roll over this, to see how that works. And so normal image doesn't do anything, but this one does. And so that's really cool, right? And you'll notice that it gives you the little pointy hand because it gives it a behavior of a link, which I'll show you how it does that in a minute.
Ron, I have a question about the letters. So when we're doing this, I noticed, like, for example, you have the A and the D, they're kind of off to the side. So each letter would have to copy, like, being off to the side, or each letter can be different, and it's the proportion size that needs to be unified?
I want you to have a composition or a cropping theme. So
Okay,
what I did in class where I rotated them and made them parallel to the edge of the format, that would be my theme, and they would all have that. So yeah,
Gotcha.
In this case, what I did was I made it off to one side was the idea. So yep,
Okay.
so I want you to do whatever you want to do, but just make it consistent.
Got it.
All right, guys. So that is, and it works here in the other preview as well. So pretty cool, right? So let me do one more, just so you're clear on it. But now come back here and look at your beautiful, simple code. When you start seeing things that would require you have marbles in your mouth to pronounce them, then you welcome to the world of JavaScript. This is where my eyes glaze over. JavaScript is beyond my brain's ability. If you are good at math and math logic, then you could probably handle JavaScript. My brain is not. So I let others write JavaScript for me, including Dreamweaver. So even in the HTML, you'll see that it added some attributes here into the elements to give this JavaScript rollover functionality. So don't worry about it. You don't need to do anything with it. In fact, you shouldn't. But it adds a lot of complexity to your file. But you're not having to write it, so hallelujah. Okay, so one more. I'm going to go down to my next letter here. Click, make the robot butt. Go to the rollover image. And then same thing. I will call this rollover 3. And the original image, this is the F, so I'm going to do F normal, and then choose the F over, and that's it, all ready to go, and boom, there is my F, and I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to go ahead and just, well, it already refreshed it for me, so I'm going to see that that is working just fine. So as long as we're here, let's look at this assignment sheet here. So doing the rollovers is optional, okay? Completely up to you. But if you do decide to do rollovers, guess what? You get extra credit points. So at the very bottom is how I'm going to evaluate and give you your grade on this. So you'll notice it says there are 5 points possible. I'm going to give you 1 point for consistent formatting and cropping. I'm going to give you another point if you have a good use of positive and negative space. So in other words, that means that the background within your crops is kind of dynamic and the eye moves around. I'm going to give you a point for whether you save it in the correct web format. And again, I'm not going to tell you what that correct web format should be, but you need to figure that out. And then I'm going to give you 2 points for if you create your web pages correctly. And so that's worth 2. And then finally, there are 2 extra credit points possible if you create rollovers for the small images. So in this case, it would be basically what I did here. Each of these small images had a rollover image, and then these are going to act as a link. If you don't have rollover images, then these will just be still images, and when you click on it, it will still go to the next page, but just won't have a rollover attached to it. Okay, so that is how the points are going to work, and so you get to decide if you want to do rollovers or not. But it is a pretty simple way to get a couple extra points, and it's actually pretty fun. All right, so I'm going to say I'm done with demonstrating this page. I am going to go ahead and make a link. I take it back. Let's go ahead and make a link going back to your home page. And so I'm going to change the text because text link to home page is a little bit, shall we say, dry, uninspired. So let's see. I'm going to turn this into a song lyric. I was going to say mama, but I think I'll go with baby. There we go. Roll me back home, baby. Refresh. There is my new text. And now I'm going to mark this text, and I am going to make this a link. And if you remember how to do that, in the properties window, right under class and to the right of ID, you'll see a window called link. I'm going to click on the browse folder, and I want this to go to my index page. Boom. I'm going to click open. And this is now a link, and you'll see when I roll over it, let me go to live view. Rollover links will still work. You'll see that turns orange. So obviously you may want to change the colors. If you don't think those are going with your design, then you change those to be whatever you want. So there. So now we're ready to go ahead and create, another page for the big letter. And so this time, I forget, do I normally have you guys copy this page? I don't think so. I think we just write this from scratch. So let's do it. So this is a time when the lazy-ass Ronway probably isn't the best because the new page is going to be very simple, and this one has a lot of boxes in it and a lot of JavaScript in it. So let's just start from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and do a save, and then I am going to do new. And remember, this window comes up. All of the defaults should be just fine. Just double check to be sure. New document, HTML, none framework, and click create. And then I am going to go ahead and give this a title. And I'm going to be uninspired here and just call this the letter A. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this. And so I always like to save things right away, so you define where they are going to be located. And so this is taking me right in my site folder. So I'm going to in class, week 5, and this is going to go at the top level of my week 5 directory. Okay, so in other words, right next to week 5 HTML, just inside of the week 5 folder. And so I'm going to call this letter A. You'll notice that I am keeping this all lowercase, and there are no spaces, there are no special characters. And click save. And there we go. And so now if I go back to my files window, you will see there are my 2 HTML pages, which are part of this in-class assignment. All right, so let's go ahead and set some things up. I'm going to refer to my sheet of code here so I remember what the heck I have you do. It's really simple stuff. I'm going to have you click on the design view side, and click on design view side a couple of times until down your page properties window, or the properties window, you see the page properties button. Open up this window, and we're going to set some simple margins here. So we're just going to make the margin on this be 0 all the way around. And we're also going to make the padding be 0 all the way around, but we can't change the padding in here, so we will do that in the code. But this will give us a body element, so that's good. So I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and hand type this. And I'm just going to say padding, colon, 0. And I did something wrong. Can anybody tell me what I did wrong? Can you see my code well enough to know? Where did I put my padding rule? After the curly brace. So that means this is currently being applied to no selector. And so I'm going to drag this up here and put it inside of the curly brace. And there we go. So that's where it should be. So I've defined all 4 margins as 0. I could also have just had margin be 0. In fact, I can change it to that very easily just by deleting those other things. But it doesn't matter. I'm a stickler. I like my code to be as simple as possible because it's easier for me to see quickly what's going on. But if you're happier, with a different line for each margin, then that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. Also, you'll notice that when I typed it, I didn't put a PX after the 0. You don't need to. Anytime you have a measurement of 0, that is the same in all measurement systems, so you don't need the PX. Dreamweaver gives it to you automatically, but I prefer not to have it if I don't need to. So just understand why things are different sometimes in different places. You just need to know the reasons why, and then you can figure out what you like the best. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and have you automatically write another set of CSS rules, and this is going to be for the div, okay? And so this is another tag selector, div space, and then hit a curly brace, and remember Dreamweaver will automatically create the second curly brace for you. And then inside of this, I'm going to write 3 rules. First, I want to define the width. So I'm going to type width, and you'll notice the code hints show up. How nice is that? So take advantage of that. And the width I want you to have is 500, and then don't forget the px. And there's no space. It's 500 px, all one word. And then don't forget the semicolon. Then I'm going to give this a height. And remember, the big images I gave you are 500 by 400 pixels. And so that's going to be the size this div is. And so the height is 400 px. And then next up is the margin. Okay. So I want this to be 170 pixels down from the top. And then I would like it to center in the window. So I'm going to write that same kind of shorthand notation for the margin that I showed you in the first page. So the first thing I want you to type is margin, colon, space, and then remember you start at the top of the clock, right? You start at 12 o'clock, and that is 170 pixels. That's the top. And then I go space, and then the right and the left, I want to have a measurement of auto. Okay, so that's telling the browser, okay, make the left and the right the same. So I type auto, A-U-T-O. Next is the bottom, which I want to be 0. And then the left is also going to be auto. And then the semicolon to finish it off. Okay, so cool. Now, nothing is showing up in here because we don't have anything in the body yet. We don't have anything done. And so there's different ways to do this. I usually write the HTML structure first, but it doesn't really matter which you do first or second. It's kind of what you prefer. So I'm going to go into the body. And what I want to do is inside of the body, now I don't need a wrapper in here because I only have one box, and that's the div. So I don't need an ID, I don't need a class. I can just use a tag selector. There's one div. That's fine. Keep it simple whenever you can. And so I'm going to go in here, and I'm very simply just going to type div. And then I'm going to type my closing angle bracket. And remember that Dreamweaver will automatically give me the closing tag. How nice. I'm going to return that down a couple of lines. And then inside of the div, I want to put my image. And so again, I broke this apart so we can't make the robot butt here, but it's still doing the same thing. My cursor is in between the open div tag and the closing div tag. And so I'm going to insert my big image. And so pull down the image there. And this is going to be, let's link from the rollover. That's more fun. So I'm going to do D large. There it is. And boom. And so now you'll see that my big image is in here. And if you look closely, you'll see a dotted line around the outside of the image. Well, that is the div that's being shown. And so it's 170 pixels down from the top because I gave it this margin, 170 pixels on the top. And it's being centered because I gave it a left and right margin of auto. And so just by from very simple code, I can get exactly what I want. And so here is image. And inside of the image, I'm going to return this down. And so inside of the image is just the attribute giving me the file path to navigate to that image. So very simple file path, images/d large. All right, so I would like to have a background on this. So let me show you kind of a fun trick, the way I did kind of my monochromatic background. Again, you don't need to do this. I don't want you to do it. Do what you want to do. But if I click on page properties and I go to the background color right here, if I click on this box next to it, that brings up the color picker. And in the lower right corner of the color picker, again, just like in Photoshop, is an eyedropper tool, which means I can sample something in the page. So if I come in here and I click on the green background of the letter, boom, it selects it. It is now exactly the same color. So obviously I don't want to do that because then it's just going to be, you won't see the edge of the composition, which is kind of the point of this. But I just want this to be a little bit darker, just the tiniest bit darker, so that it is, you can see it, but it's subtle. And then I can click apply, see if I like it. Yeah, that's fine. You know what, if I want it to be not quite so different, I can go back here and just make it a little bit lighter again. Click OK, and there we go. So kind of a nice subtle difference, monochromatic. So it's totally up to you what you want to do. The last thing I need to do is link this back to the project primary page. And so this time we don't need to make any text. We're just going to click the images for this. So again, same thing. I click on the image. I go down to my page properties. I find the link box down in there. Or not the page properties, the properties, sorry. Click on the little browse folder. And this time I want to tell it to go not to the home page for the site, but to the week 5 HTML page. And once again, it didn't take. It's amazing how often that happens. Oh, I'm sorry, it did take. I see it. Okay, good. So there's our anchor element surrounding the image element, and all of this is inside of the div. And so now I can save this. You'll see I now have 2 tabs open. As you will too, you're going to end up with 10 tabs open by the time you finish this. I'm going to go back to week 5 here, and I'm going to click on the image for that D rollover image. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Now you'll notice down here in the properties window inside the link, there's a hashtag in there. And so Dreamweaver did that automatically when it wrote the rollover behavior. And this hashtag is just to make it behave like a link. That's what's triggering the little pointy hand that shows up when you hover over it. So you don't need that hashtag. You can just browse to the file you want it to go to. So I'm going to click this, and I want this to go to, now I didn't make a letter, why did I call that letter A? Oh, because I went brain dead. But I want it to go to the letter A page, even though it's the letter D. Do as I say, not as I do. Did I mention that? Click open. And now I'm going to pull this down, get rid of that. This now has a link on it that is going to, let's see, where did we go? There it is, right there. And so there's our link surrounding the image of the rollover. All right, so save this. And then let's do a preview. I think I may still have it open. Let's see. I do. And so now at this point, if I hover over the D, I should see at the bottom a little file path for where this is going to go. And I can see it's pointing to letter A, even though it's the letter D. And there we go. And so that's showing the page. If I click on this image, it takes me back to this page. And so what's uber groovy about this, I don't want to be too strong, but at this point, the LARW is going to be really your best friend, right? Because now if you just do a save as of this page, and that will be what you do your next letter on. And so if I go back and do the F now, I will do a save as of this page, save it as letter F, come in here, switch what's showing, and also changing my background color if I want to. So you can save yourself a ton of work. You don't need to build anything else. And let me show you a neat trick. And this will save you a lot of time. I'm going to go back to letter A. In fact, you know what? I'm going to change the name of this because this is really bugging me. And so I'm in Dreamweaver. So if I go back to the desktop and I change the name of that on the desktop, do you think my file paths are still going to be accurate? No, because I'm going to have all these file paths pointing to letter A, even though, and then I go change it to letter D. Well, there's no letter A anymore. But if I change it here in Dreamweaver, I can just come right here in the Files window. And you want to make sure that none of your HTML pages are open. You want to close all your HTML pages. And then if you come in here, I can click on this and click on it again, and then I could just rename the file. And so I'm going to change that from letter A to letter D. I'm going to hit the Enter key, and then it's going to bring up this. It's like saying, hey, whoa, pal, you're changing a file path. Do you want us to fix this for you? And I'm going to go, yes, please, sir, Mr. Dreamweaver. And I'm going to click Update. And so now, in theory, all the file paths that involve that file name have now been updated to reflect this new file name. So let's see if that's true. So I'm going to click on week 5 and click here. And let's find my link. Where did it go? Yep, look at that. Letter D. It updated it. It fixed it. And so if you need to fix things, in fact, those of you who stick around at the end today, this may very well, what I'm going to be having you do is fix it in here. And so that will save you a lot of time. Okay, so let me get the letter D open again. And let me show you a cool trick. I'm going to do a save as. And now let's go ahead and call this letter A. Boom. And then I want to change this now. So this is the letter A. This obviously is still the letter D. To change this, all I have to do is click on this letter. And there's two things I can do. I could actually just change the code right here and change this from D large to A large. That's easy. But while you're learning, it's probably better to do it this way. If you go into the Properties window again, go to the source, that's the image source, and click on the Browse folder, you can just go then choose the A large, and it will update that image. So you don't have to delete it and reinsert it. And that's a good thing, because something that is around this big image is an anchor element. So if you delete the image, they're going to have to delete the anchor element too. And so this way, all you had to do was change the image. If I did want to change the background color, then I can quickly go in here. If I use the same technique, I can just do that. Darker. Okay, and boom. Change the title. Oh, the title's still right. And I'm done. So you can see once you get the basic work done, making the pages is actually going to be really quick. And then all I have to do is go back here and then create a link to that letter A page. And now, basically, I've got the first two letters done. They are both linked to the correct pages. When I preview this, everything is linking to the right page, and everything is linking back to this primary project. I am going to stop here in regards to this demo, because I think I've shown you everything you need to know to really finish the project. So obviously, the first thing you're going to want to do is create your letters in Photoshop. And please remember, I have students do this wrong every semester. You do not need to use new letters. Use the letters I gave you. Just crop them the way you want. If you're doing rollovers, then make the rollovers look the way you want. You know, make it your own, but you're going to start with my letters, so you don't have to recreate those. And then this is just due by the beginning of next class. So my advice would be is do this. You know, if you got nothing going tonight, if you're closeted, as we all are, you know, and you're awake, you know, why not go ahead and work on this tonight while it's fresh in your head? Otherwise, do it in the next day or two, so you don't forget all this stuff. But I will post that video by tomorrow afternoon, if you, or this video, if you need it. Any questions about this at all? Okay, excellent.
Actually, yeah, I have a question.
Yeah,
So based on the letter, the width and the height, that's going to be reflecting the width and the height of our cropped image, correct?
That's right. That's a really good question, DJ. So obviously, mine changed the size because of the way I cropped my image. So if your image ends up being vertical, if it ends up being you know, horizontal but a different shape or a square, then you're going to need to adjust your math accordingly. So just know that's going to affect the numbers that are here in the letter. And it's also going to affect the size of this box here. So remember, the width must be 500 pixels for the big images, and the width must be 200 pixels for the little images. And so that means the basic construction I've created will work for you. You're just going to need to change the height depending on how you cropped it. So that could be really tall or it could be really short. That's completely up to you.
And the margin would stay the same?
Margin would stay the same, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, good questions, DJ.